Love you. Bye. Yeah. Yeah. So it turns out the Ghost of Christmas Present is a really chill guy. He just wanted someone to talk to about the new season of Star Trek Discovery. Born in 1940 in Muirfield, West Riding of Yorkshire, England, Patrick Stewart was the third of three sons. His mother Gladys was a weaver, and his father Alfred was a regimental sergeant major in the British Army, and after the war would work as a general laborer and as a postman. Stewart recalls his father being a violent man with a terrible temper, and it has been noted that Alfred Stewart, having been through the Dunkirk evacuation, was most likely suffering from combat fatigue, considered a precursor to post-traumatic stress disorder. Patrick Stewart began acting early, saying that when he was attending Crowley's Church of England Junior and Infants School, his English teacher put a copy of Shakespeare in his hand and said, "Now get up on your feet and perform." A moment that Stewart still recalls as the incident that launched his career. He would study drama in secondary school and took acting lessons in Mytholmroyd, which is where he would first meet a young actor named Brian Blessed. Hold on, I mispronounced that name. Apparently it's pronounced Brian Blessed! Ha ha! Stewart would leave school at the age of 15 to focus more on his acting career, and to support himself, he took a job as a journalist and obituary writer with the Muirfield and District Reporter. But a year later, the editor of the paper would demand that Stewart choose either theater or journalism. Stewart left the newspaper and got a job selling furniture. The story is unconfirmed, but one of Patrick's brothers has said that the reason the editor forced a choice was that he had discovered Patrick had been attending rehearsals instead of working, and that the stories he had filed with the paper had been largely imagined. Without newspaper work, Stewart would take on a job selling furniture until he received a grant to attend the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School, where his classmates included his childhood friend Brian Blessed. Wait. Brian Blessed! Ha ha! Stewart would join the Manchester's Library Theatre, and in 1966 he would become a member of the Royal Shakespeare Company, where he would become the company's first-choice low-comic actor. He would remain a member of the RSC until 1982. In 1967 he had his first TV appearance on the soap opera Coronation Street, and in 1969 he would play Horatio for the BBC opposite Ian Richardson's Hamlet as part of Kenneth Clark's Civilization. But the stage was, at the time, Stewart's main occupation, with the occasional small role in television and film helping to subsidize his work. This is why people are, to this day, surprised when they revisit older movies and television programs such as I, Claudius, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, or David Lynch's adaptation of Dune, and suddenly, boom, there's Patrick Stewart, but just for a minute. None of these roles earned him any recognition, but they all helped to pay the bills. In 1987, Stewart performed at a literary reading at UCLA, where he was seen by Robert H. Justman. Impressed with Stewart's performance, Justman offered Stewart a role on a project he was helping to cast, a revival of 1960s science fiction franchise Star Trek. Stewart was unfamiliar with the original show at the time, nor did he realize how popular the series was with Americans. In order to take the role, he would have to sign a 6-year contract, which he was reluctant to do. But his agent assured him that this first-run syndication science fiction program couldn't possibly last more than a single season, and Stewart could collect a very nice paycheck and be back to acting in London within a year. Star Trek: The Next Generation would run for 7 seasons, A total of 178 episodes starting in 1987 and ending in 1994, and after some initial growing pains, it would launch Stewart to international stardom. Marina Sirtis, to this day, says that Stewart was responsible for at least 50%, maybe more, of the next generation's success, because his professionalism was an inspiration to everybody on the cast. After the show's end, Stewart would continue on to appear in 4 movies spun off from the series, and would revisit the character of Jean-Luc Picard in 2018 for a sequel series for Paramount+. Stewart has since listed The Next Generation as a highlight in his career because it was the point where everything changed, although he has also been quoted as saying that if he had known he would dedicate 7 straight years of his life to playing the character, he probably would never have taken the job. Even so, he would become central to yet another pop culture genre phenomenon after playing Charles Xavier in 2000's X-Men, a role that has since seen Stewart return for a total of 7 feature films. He has also been a fixture in made-for-television adaptations of great literary works, such as Moby Dick, The Lion in Winter, and The Mysterious Island, while his distinctive voice has led to his being a highly sought-after voiceover performer. In 2001, Queen Elizabeth II appointed him an officer of the Order of the British Empire. In 2004, he would move back to England and would be appointed Chancellor of the University of Huddersfield. And in 2008, he would be appointed Professor of Performing Arts, teaching master classes for drama students. 2010 would see Stewart honored once again, this time when the Queen conferred knighthood upon him, making him Sir Patrick Stewart, OBE. In 2015, he stepped down from the chancellorship of the University of Huddersfield, and the university would honor him by naming a building after him. In addition to his position with the University of Huddersfield, Stewart had been awarded an honorary doctorate of letters from the University of East Anglia, an honorary doctorate of letters from the University of Leeds, and an honorary doctorate from the Free University of Brussels, as well as being an emeritus fellow of St. Catherine's College, Oxford. In addition to his acting work, Stewart has been an advocate against domestic violence, working for the cause with Amnesty International and Refuge, and also giving his name to a scholarship at Huddersfield to fund postgraduate study into domestic violence. He has supported the Armed Forces charity Combat Stress and is a patron of the United Nations Association, calling the UN the best legacy of the World War II era. Never one to shy away from a political discussion, he has defined his politics as being rooted in a belief in fairness and equality, and is a member of the Labour Party in the UK and considers himself politically a socialist. He has advocated for the organization Dignity in Dying in the UK, and as an atheist is a patron of Humanists UK. Finally, while living in Los Angeles, he would work with the ASPCA and has frequently volunteered to foster dogs through LA's Wags and Walks. In 2021, he was presented with the ASPCA's Pit Bull Advocate and Protector Award.
We went through some hard times together, but we pulled through, and we thrived on the idleness of others. Rest content, Jacob. The firm we built together will prosper.
In 1988, Patrick Stewart would, for the first time, present a one-man stage performance of Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. After having read the novel in 1986, when he first realized that, while familiar with the story, he had never actually read the book before, Stewart began developing his adaptation. He would debut the production at the parish church in Mirfield, West Yorkshire, where the performance would raise funds for the church organ restoration. This production was 3 hours long, and in it Stewart portrayed more than 30 characters with no costumes, props, or set changes. 2 years later, Stewart would retool the show into a shorter form that he would workshop with UCLA's Professor Albert Hutter, a prominent Dickens scholar. Stewart would begin presenting the show at Caltech's Beckman Auditorium during the Christmas seasons, and in 1991 he moved it to New York City for a limited run of 16 performances, winning the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding One-Person Show. He would perform it again in New York the following year, this time for 24 performances, and in 1993 he would tour with the show during the Christmas season. Critics loved the performance, with some noting that his one-man show reminded them of the stories of Dickens's own performances of the novella. The production became immensely popular, even making the cover of science fiction fandom magazine Starlog. And while 1999's A Christmas Carol from TNT Productions and Hallmark Entertainment is not an adaptation of Stewart's one-man show, it's hard to ignore the role that the publicity around Stewart's performances likely had in his selection for the production. The script for this film version would be written by Olivier Award-winning playwright Peter Barnes, best known for the play The Ruling Class and the screenplay for its subsequent film adaptation starring Peter O'Toole. He had previously worked with Hallmark Entertainment on their 1999 adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, as well as their movie Noah's Ark, starring Jon Voight as the titular biblical character, and he would later script 2000's Arabian Nights for them. In the director's chair was David Hugh Jones. Not this Davy Jones, nor this David Jones, but popular theatrical director and teacher at the Yale School of Drama, David Hugh Jones, who had directed for the Royal Shakespeare Company and for the Brooklyn Academy of Music. While most of Jones's resume is stage direction, he had also directed the film The Confession with Ben Kingsley, and for television, he had directed Malcolm McDowell in Look Back in Anger, as well as episodes of Picket Fences, Chicago Hope, and The Practice. For their inspiration, the team would look to Alastair Sim's iconic star turn. They wanted A Christmas Carol to be a ghost story first and foremost, and the 1951 production gave them a model for the dark, ominous look they wanted to achieve, while still maintaining a spark of joy and hope. Composer Stephen Warbeck, who just the year before had won an Academy Award for his work on Shakespeare in Love, would provide the score, and costumes would be designed by Charles Node, who had previously designed costumes for The Life of Brian, Braveheart, and a little movie you might have heard of called Blade Runner. Alan Tompkins would be the supervising art director, with his credits including Star Wars Episode V, The Empire Strikes Back, Kundun, Saving Private Ryan, and 1985's Life Force, a movie that is just sort of a weird nexus point for British creatives of multiple generations. It keeps popping up, guys. The movie would debut on the TNT network on December 5th, 1999. While some critics didn't care for the dark tone of the movie, Variety's Michael Spire would call it handsome, wholesome, and finely tuned TV at its classiest, praising David Jones's direction and Barnes's script, and saying, "Stewart as Scrooge is such a perfect piece of casting that it will be hard to imagine anyone else as the sour old tightwad in years to come." Karen James, meanwhile, would write in the New York Times, calling it glorious, saying, "Its greatest triumph is Mr. Stewart's performance," while also singling out Richard E. Grant and Saskia Reeves for praise in their roles as Bob and Mrs. Cratchit.
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years.
He died 7 years ago this very night.
Mr. Williams and Mr. Foster, may we offer our sympathy?
Why? You're not relatives, are you?
Like the Disney Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey that would come later, this Christmas Carol opens with Ebenezer Scrooge seeing to Jacob Marley's funeral. It's a fascinating moment, as we don't usually get to see real indicators of Scrooge's relationship with Marley. And often the interaction between Scrooge and Marley's ghost can leave you wondering how these two could possibly have been friends. But the moments of hard, solemn respect we see from Scrooge as this production begins give us a clear picture. Theirs was a friendship that was forged in the hard times that they faced in business. Maybe they weren't the most demonstrative of men, but they were survivors together, and that counts for a lot. And then as we watch time pass, we see the sign outside the counting house age, until we finally hear Bob Cratchit asking if Marley's name should be removed from the sign.
No. Time will erase it at no cost to us.
Friendship and respect are hard won, but money is money. This is a Scrooge who retires to his home to find sustenance in a bowl of gruel, and when Marley arrives, he brings along a horde of desperate spirits to show Scrooge. When the ghost of Christmas Present looks to drive home his point to the already weakening Scrooge, the children want and ignorance emerge. And in this version, we get to see Bob Cratchit weeping over Tiny Tim's lifeless corpse in the upstairs bedroom. Hey, did you know that that's actually in the original book? Anyway, Merry Christmas. With the looming ghost of Christmas future guiding him through the streets, Scrooge winds up tumbling into the grave, face to face with his own dead body, before dropping through the earth into a bottomless pit. Yikes! That's hardcore. His joy at awaking in his bed is so strong that you can understand how people would think Scrooge had gone mad, as he breaks into a laugh that, for just a second, resembles someone about to have a heart attack. And as for the final point in our running scoreboard, this version of the story works hard to remain true to the original, so it's a merry prank on Bob Cratchit the next day, because Scrooge has to spend Christmas with his nephew, after all.
Merry Christmas, Bob! Bob, merrier Christmas than I have wished you in many a year. I'd like to help your family.
The beauty of this production and of Stewart's performance in it is that it's dark, but it's not all dark. This London is grim, gritty, grimy, but there is still love and there is still room for hope and joy, and Scrooge himself reflects that. He's a man who has allowed the world to make him hard, cold, and flinty, but he's still a man possessed of a keen wit and an eye for the truth. He just needs to see that it's all right to allow a little bit of softness into your life. So tell me, what do you think of Patrick Stewart's turn as Ebenezer Scrooge in the Hallmark production of A Christmas Carol? Oh, I am losing a sideburn. Drop down into the comments and let me know. You know that's what the comments are there for. While you're there, make sure that you hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. The share button is very handy because, as you know, sharing is caring. If you're really eager to see more Film Optimist right away, you can watch the Scrooge Advent Calendar from the very beginning right there. Or up here, there is my Halloween countdown of Draculas. Until next time, watch like it means something.